It's Saturday morning. It is dark outside, dude. Today is the day that
Yes.
the Time Lords have decided that shall shift our clocks so that we have more time to work on the crops later in the day. I guess I don't know. It precedes me. It's like why we. I learned yesterday, which I learned years ago, that the reason we have a 6 week break in the summer for school is so the children can become the labor force on the farm and
Oh,
go
yeah. It
and
used to be longer than
harvest.
6 weeks. It was three
Yeah,
months.
it was 3 months. Yeah,
Yeah.
now it's barely 6 weeks.
And the clock
How
would,
are you, my good friend Dewey Freeman?
I could not be better.
Ha. There you have a choice in how you answer that question. You always have a choice, right?
That is true.
I make a little joke of it sometimes. I'll say if I was any better, someone would try to legislate against it
Yeah, exactly.
because I feel pretty good, and I think it's because I got some time with grandkids.
That sounds absolutely lovely. Was that over Halloween?
Yeah, it was over
You went up
over
and hung with them?
Halloween and hung out with them, and it made me think about this idea of leaving tracks
Mm,
and legacy and being ancestors and having a sense. I think it's a sense of place in time and understanding that and your role in that. I'm enmeshed in the book Dune by Frank Herbert right now.
mm, mm-hmm.
And it's 10,000 years in the future, and they can recall every generation and every person and everything. And I think we tend to live our life so fast right now. It feels like we're living it so fast. We're zooming by and not cognizant that we're leaving tracks and we're being watched by the young ones. And it it puts this sense of role model on me and the opportunity, if we look at the positive side, to make memories for those around us.
In making memories and leaving tracks, what is your what is your perspective of leaving tracks? Because I love that. I'd love that. You know, I'm looking at personally, what is my legacy? How do I want to leave that? What do I want to do with that? I'm also looking at, I also think about what kind of ancestor, and when, whenever people look after I'm gone, what kind of ancestor will I have been and or am? Um, the idea of leaving tracks, though, feels like there's more fluidity to it and more present dayness to it. Um, could you talk about that a little bit more?
It comes from that idea, comes to me from Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann, retired Green Beret, who a dear has become a dear friend, was a coach
Mm-hmm.
of Kimberly's, was a coach of mine. It's a story for another day. He's in my mind right now as we come up on Veterans Day, and he has a film he's produced, and he's given his whole after service career towards helping other service people deal with the demons, and he
Mm-hmm.
wrote a play about that. Um, and he got that from his father, which is what tracks will you leave? Like to have a I think part of all of this that we've been talking about for these many weeks, I think, is around self-awareness. And I think being aware that you're leaving tracks we saw a great Western movie last night. You must go see. It's called Old Henry,
Okay.
and it's a small film, so I don't know. It's not a wide release, big, but
We'll look
it
at
was.
that.
But there's this part where he comes upon an injured man in a little gully in a culvert, and he picks him up. He's been shot, and there's a bag of money. It's obvious there's something nefarious going on, and he picks him up and puts him on his horse because he's going to nurse him back to health. And then we see him go back and cover the tracks. And he's in the middle of nowhere. And he gets a brush and he covers his tracks. So thinking about that, A, he knows he's leaving tracks. B, he knows someone's probably looking for this guy.
Yeah.
C, he does this. And later in the film, there is a posse and they have an Indian who is a tracker who is looking, and you're looking, this is fields of weed and stuff. And like, how do you find it? But he says, he was here. Someone was with him. Someone who knows how to cover his tracks. And when we say leaving tracks, it's an awareness that you are.
That you are, and also what sort of tracks are you leaving?
Yeah, what do you want to leave? Yesterday, the time, the whole concept of time is on my head. I'm recently retired. I'm thinking about time. I'm thinking about all of that, and so I'm a little obsessive about it right now. And I'm thinking that in a conversation I had yesterday, he a guy who's our age, and he said he talked about how old he is here,
Mm-hmm.
how old he is here, and how old he is here. He says, because his doctor said, well, how old's your knee? Because how old are you? He says, well, I'm 34. He says, how old's your knee? And he said, 64.
That actually fits for me because I was at the doctor for my knee yesterday. So
see, so in that, but we talked about age for a second, and he said that he had heard, this was an old saying, you're as old as people continue to say your name. And he said, so my grandfather is 133 right now. He says, because I tell a story about my grandfather every time. He does keynotes all over the world. And he said, I tell this story about my grandfather, which makes my grandfather 134 years old.
Got it.
So the track his grandfather left was in the impact he had on his grandson. The grandfather would never know that. And for me, it is this, and I think I can track back the awareness because I've been a mentor for so many years. And when I was doing computer animation, it was for high school kids. We set up a after school program and the kids would come in, but I would see the parents years later. I mean, Santa Barbara's a small town, and they would pull me aside and say, thank you. I don't know who they are. And their son or daughter had gone on to a career at Industrial Light and Magic or at DreamWorks, or they had built their own company or whatever. And it was that summer they spent with us, and they wanted
That's
to
incredible.
thank us. I think, and that was 30 years ago that started and has changed. So that's kind of all of that stuff clumps in together to know that what you're doing and the state you have affects the state of others. Mm-hmm. And so to be aware of that, knowing that that interaction with you is going to create a memory for them. And if you want to leave the track is that memory that they have of you. And to don't waste that time.
And exactly. And to be aware of what kind of tracks you're leaving.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is it that you actually want to leave? Do you want to leave something that adds to the world? Do you want to leave something that adds to somebody's life? Or do you want to leave something that when people think of whatever they think of, that they're going, I don't want to do that. And
it's an interesting way to think of it, because one of the other things we were talking about earlier was when we're doing the work, working on ourselves, working, because I see a lot of my work is working with younger people, and I don't want to tell them what to do. It's like I'm not going to feed them fish. I'm going to teach them how to fish, right? So teach them how to think and that kind of thing. But I want them to discover the strength of the situation rather than the angst or anxiety of the situation, because you can go down that rabbit hole of being a victim, right? I think we've talked about being victims.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd rather help them see, and they may only have one tool to fight the demon, right? I'm going to help them find that one tool that they have, that one thing that they say, okay, hideous strength, right? Let's use that. And that's informed by work from Marcus Buckingham,
Mm-hmm.
who talks about focusing on the strength, not on the positive, not the negative.
Right. Strength-based work.
Right. And I'm a big fan of that. I learned that early enough in life to know to kind of focus. What's that old song? Accentuate the positive.
So a little bit ago, you were talking about your friend who speaks and his grandfather's 134 years old. What I wonder about is, and you used the phrase of as long as someone is, I think I have this correctly, you're as old as your age is based on somebody still using your name. Did I get that pretty correctly?
And I'm paraphrasing for sure, for certain. He was much more eloquent than I am.
And the thought and that perspective is still incredibly elegant. One of the things that I've been running across with my clients is sometimes almost the insistence that the work has to be about something negative, has to be about some horrible something, has to be incredibly intense, has to be filled with angst. And if it's not filled with angst and intensity, then there's no value to the work.
I'm curious why you think that is, because we talked about the stories we tell ourselves. And yes. So that's clearly a story they're telling themselves, that this they're stacking on their struggle.
And yes, and what I'm thinking is that there's something about that if I struggle with something, then I'm valuable. as an underlying message. That's not what I'm saying, but
No,
as an
no, no, no,
underlying
no,
message.
no. Yeah, the struggle is only the middle of the story,
Exactly.
right? The struggle is we we want to get. If you don't have a struggle, you don't have a story. Okay, given, right? And I want to get to the shift where there's a phase shift where it's the end of it becomes the end of the struggle, which is, oh, someone externally, in this case you to them, offers a different point of view, which ends the struggle. At many times it ends the struggle and begins the final session of the success. What is the lesson that we learned by coming through this trial by fire? And the fact that people enjoy the struggle or want to make the struggle more, or there's not enough struggle, gets me thinking about they enjoy being a victim more than they enjoy being the hero of their own story. They may not be conscious of that, by the way.
When we struggle, we're in angst, and by God, I'm going to make it through this. Our nervous system emits hundreds of different kinds of hormones and chemicals into our body. Way more than I even know about. I know a fair amount about it, but there's people in the world that know 10 times as much or 100 times as much as I do about them. On one level, that struggle creates some level of, I think you might know where I'm going here. Some
Is
level
it an addiction?
Yes.
There you go.
Of adrenaline rush that sends us into being addicted to that process.
Yeah. Fair enough. But now we have a different problem.
Yeah, now there's a whole different problem. But winding back to the tracks, a question I have is that the track we want to leave?
That he was a person that no one wanted to be around because he was always dealing with his angst and anxiety and his woe is
or
me.
that was the addiction that the person has.
Yeah.
Versus the struggle of growth and the struggle of moving into connecting our head and our hearts and our genitals. And is that the track we want to leave? Because I'm not talking about being Pollyannish. I'm not talking about avoiding anything. I'm not talking about any of those kinds of things. But I'm also talking about what I would call a post-traumatic growth. I'm talking about leaving a track that people actually really want to follow.
So let's pull on that thread for a second, because my current life is all about storytelling and helping people tell stories and figure out how to tell the stories,
which is like amazing.
And the story is the story of the tracks you left. It is the track, right?
Yes.
The fact that I called into being a story wrapped around an experience that I survived a struggle is in fact the track. And that story, well told, will be told by others well beyond my days. You may tell stories about how I interact with my grandchildren outside of this, and that story lives, and that becomes the track that Mark left. Exactly. And being able to, so if I'm always living in the struggle, I never have the story.
Right.
Because my story never ends. It's like, no, I mean, Frodo has to find the gold. Right? I mean, the hero's journey is you die. And that story is like, yeah, he died. And there's no longevity to that. The track
Right.
doesn't list. And the other thing is, those people just aren't fun to be around, and they can't be fun to be around themselves. And I think that's part of being an elder, is being able to see that in someone and present a different reality to them that suggests that there's life outside the struggle, on the other side of the struggle, and that and you become the external shift that helps them see that. Now, to your point of that struggle is an addiction, let's that's a different, now we're in a different story. Right now we're in a different story. One of the things, though, I wanted to get back, and if I repeated this, if I'm repeating myself, then great, from an earlier show. I think we talked about victims and the little exercise I had, and I'm curious if this would work. So the exercise is, and with this mythical client or guys that you're talking to, they have done an effective job of telling you how fucked everything is.
Exactly.
Just, I mean, and if they don't see it on your face, if they don't register that you're, oh my God, that's terrible, then they're going to stack. Well, let me turn that shit up right here.
Yes.
Oh, and look at how bad it's making me feel. And I'm just, all of that. We've all done that, but all of that. They've effectively told you a story of how victimized they are, even by themselves or by someone else, whatever it is. So what I would do, I would say, got it? Time out. I want you to tell me the same story, exact same story. And I want you to now tell me how it's your fault that all that shit happened.
Oh.
Now you're not the victim anymore. How is it your fault? You caused all that to happen. So you can't be the victim. You're the victimizer. Do that and then wait. And that phase shift, and it happened early enough in my life, that experience went through an exercise where we had to pair off and tell our worst story and really convince the person. And then we didn't know it was coming. He says, okay, guess what? Now switch it. And you were not that. Even if you were, figure out a way to tell it as if you weren't. And I wonder, so you have real experience in counseling, and you're a doctor, you've got 80,000 hours of this. What would happen if you did that?
Well, I do that with people. So everybody that's listening, this is an experiment that Mark and I would love you to try. One of the phrases that I use is it's not okay to be a victim of your own choices. If I choose to live on a property that in the winter we get a ton of snow, and I have to get out at sub-zero temperatures to put blankets on my horses and et cetera, I'm not a victim of that. If I choose to ride a horse, and in my life I've had a few falls that I've busted things up, I'm not a victim of that. I busted things up. That is true.
You used, oh, I see. You didn't use the word allowed. You said it's not okay to be a victim, but I heard the word allowed.
Okay, well, we can use that. We can put that one in. That can be part of this track. We're not allowed to be a victim of our own choices. It's like you made the choice to do X, Y, and Z, and I mean, even in 2010, I had a horrible horse accident.
Hmm.
Busted up my pelvis. Part of my whole pelvic area is not my whole pelvic area. Part of my pelvic area is numb. My feet are numb. And
To this day.
Oh, to this day. And it's like, okay, that's what happened. I'm so friggin' glad to be alive. I'm so friggin' glad I'm walking. I'm so friggin' glad I didn't bust up. I'm not in a quadriplegic or in an iron lung. I'm so friggin', it's like I got on that horse. I actually I should not have gotten on that horse that day. I know enough about horses to not have gotten on that horse that day. I know enough. Had it been anyone else, I would have gone, don't get on that horse today. Because of the circumstances and the way that horse was behaving. It was hard. I went through hell. I was loaded into a helicopter flight for life with the last things that anyone said that I heard was, if we don't stop this bleeding, we're going to lose this guy. But I was not a victim of that. And here's what's really, I'd not put this together this way before.
Oh, you mean this is going to happen again? We're going to connect some
This is
dots?
going to happen again. Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to owe you so much money for all this therapy. That changed my life for the better. It made me a better person. It made me look at things, and it put me in a position of what kind of tracks do I want to lead? How am I going to do that?
Was it? So 2 questions. One, you faced your own mortality, which has a sense of doing that. I think that's what's happening with me right now. So in a different sense, but I'm curious. How old were you?
60.
Were you, and you're so aware, were you aware in the moment? No, different question. At what point did you become aware of its life-altering impact?
Pretty quickly.
Are we saying
even in the hospital?
Oh, right. Oh, so is that the you had said Pollyannish earlier, but I think I might say that one is in search of the silver lining.
Well, yes. And here's what I'm not saying. Many people will say, might even hear that. Many people have said to me, well, everything happens for a reason. And in my view, that's complete bullshit. Other than, well, yeah, it happened for a reason. My horse spooked and jumped up in the air probably 10 feet, and I landed on him and got an open book break and hit the ground. That's a reason. But not from the reason of, oh, well, there was somebody up there going, they're going to make this happen. So therefore, not that. That's not what I'm talking about. It happened because it happened. I get a choice about what I want to do with that.
You got to get another choice.
Yeah, I get a choice about whether I want to be a full-blown victim, whether I want to, how I want to, what I want to do with that. I get a choice of what tracks I want to leave from that. And all get that. Do I want to leave tracks of, yeah, don't ever get on a horse again? Well, that wasn't the track I left. I did a 3-hour ride 2 days ago and was up working with my horses yesterday. I'll do that again today. But it's like, what tracks do you want? What track do I want to leave with that? And it's not particularly the tracks of, well, if you fall off your horse, this is what you do. That's not the tracks. The tracks are, what do I want to, and what can I learn as a man
Right.
from that situation?
Right.
And what do I want to do with that? And how do I want to do that?
There's a step after that.
Keep going, sir.
So we all are the hero in our own journey. Okay.
Yes.
I believe that to be true. And so what does our hero do after the realization of the lesson? Because they have to go through the trial by fire. They have to go through the chalice. They have to go through whatever that thing is. And they then survive it. And they go, to your point, am I okay? Is the world okay? We're all okay, right? We have all that, right? And then the realization of, okay, what just happened? Boom, boom, boom. Was there something to learn? By the way, there's always an opportunity to train. So yes, there was something to learn. Do I take the time to figure out what it was? Oh, it was that. There were 3 signs that I shouldn't have gotten on the goddamn horse. I did not pay attention to the horse because my desire to be on the horse was greater than my listening to the signs that were so clearly there that I can see now. So the lesson is pay attention to my intuition, maybe, right? If there's some intuition, don't override that. Listen to yourself, maybe, whatever it is. There's another step. It's going back and telling others the lesson you learned.
Exactly.
Which is what we're doing in this show.
Exactly. So I have a question for you. And I'm aware that we're going to run out of time fairly quickly. I know that you've gone through tons of stuff. And I'm actually willing to answer this same question. In one of and you get a choice to pick whatever you want. What, out of some of the stuff that you've gone through, what are the 1 or 2 lessons that you've allowed yourself? And I really like that word, allowed. You used that earlier. Allowed yourself to learn, that you're carrying on and that you're passing on the tracks of that lesson to your grandkids.
I'm hyper aware of that. So this is an easy one. I think it's just one word, and which I could unpack for days, but I think the word is listen. And I think
just a little bit.
A little bit might be, okay, I'm going to make a left turn into oncoming traffic. My earlier self would have been, because I was debating between slow down and listen is really the thing. So my earlier self would, I'll go make a risky left turn in front of oncoming traffic. I know I can make it. I'll gun it and I'll get in. And because I have some arbitrary, I need to get to the store faster by 4 seconds or 3 seconds. Yet I'm risking getting hit. And if I get hit, I'm in a world, I don't even think about getting hurt. It's like, I've got a leased car and I'm going to have to do this. And it's going to be 6 months of bullshit rather to save 6 seconds. And that repeats itself all through my life because I tend to go through life super fast. So I need to listen to myself that says, slow down a second. You're okay. Wait. Let the other guy go. Whatever that is, you don't have to be so fast. You'll get there. And it's in that listening that I actually, here's what it is. This is Grandmaster Wheaton in my head right now. Slow down to go fast.
Yes.
There you go.
Right.
And you?
I have two, very much the same. It's because in that situation, I had looked at everything, the entire situation, all of the possibilities. I knew in my gut what to do, and I did not do that.
You did not listen to yourself.
I did not listen to myself. I didn't listen to my gut. I frankly didn't listen to my horse. My horse was telling me everything I should have, that I could have known.
I want to do a show on something. I heard this term, someone said it in conversation, and I'm always listening for the turn of phrase.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always listening. And he says, we have to learn how to listen louder.
Yes. So that's number one. The number two lesson that I took is when you have gone through, you've made mistakes, you've done this or that, something's ended up different than you want, or that you thought, is to use what you have. And here's what I mean by that. What I mean by that is, and I was actually in the dojo, and it was one of the first times I was in the dojo. It was maybe 7, 8 years ago. And my balance is a little off because my feet are numb from the lower half of my feet. And we were doing a particular move footwork wise. And I was struggling with it. And I said to the sensei, I can't feel my feet. I can't. I'm struggling with this. And he literally said to me, very kind, what part of your foot can you feel? I'm like, oh, well, at the outside edge of my heel. He says, what is that? And it's like, oh, okay. I'm still probably not the most smooth person in the dojo all the time, but even when I ride, my feet are in the stirrups. Sometimes I can't feel my feet in the stirrups. What I can feel is the pressure up through my leg. So I use that. And that's what truly, in my mind, keeps us from being a victim. Is, yeah, you have lost this. Yeah, this has not gone well. And use what you got.
That's what we call a mic drop moment, Mr. Dewey Freeman. I'm Mark Sylvester. We're the Elder Council. Man, I can't wait to have another one of these conversations, my friend.
It's the best morning of my week.